Since it's October and spooky season, I thought I'd share my own real-life scary story that happened to me. So, for those of you who don't know, I've been working in the banking industry for more than 3 years now. And during my first year there, I met this older man who was the same ethnicity as me. So I used to call him Uncle, right? Because he was in his early 70s. So he kind of reminded me of like a father or an uncle. Anyway, this uncle comes in regularly. I end up always helping him. Eventually, he gets my number because he lets me know that I could apply for a government job, that he could help me because he used to be in the government. So he was like, you shouldn't be working here. You should be working for the government. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So anyway, he got my number and he texted me like instructions on what to do. And long story short, it didn't end up working out. Like, it went nowhere. Then he kept my number, but he would keep texting me occasionally saying like, I would love to take you out to lunch or dinner outside of work. Like, let me know when you're free. And I thought it was a nice, cute gesture, so I did go out with him once to dinner. We went to, like, Red Lobster. And at the dinner, I noticed, like, he would just talk all about himself and his life. He never would ask me anything. So I thought that was a little weird, but then I realized, okay, maybe he's just a lonely old man. He was married, or he is married, but he didn't. You could tell, like, he wasn't happy. But, like, I never saw him creepy in that way until, like, later on. So, fast forward to, like, a year later, he comes in regularly at the bank as usual. And then he starts, like, bringing me free food, like lunch, without even me asking, without even letting me know, what would you like to eat? Well, my treat. So I never expected him to do all this, but he would bring me food. And on holidays, he would also, like, give me a card. Like, he would meet me outside the parking lot at my job, and he'd be like, I have something for you. And he would give me, like, a card, like a holiday card or something. And inside, it would have, like, cash in it. And I would be like, oh, like, you didn't have to do this at all. Like, thank you so much. I wasn't supposed to take cash from a customer, but since we were outside of work, I thought it was okay. But no, it was not okay. So, fast forward to a year later, this was like around the time I started dating someone, a guy that I met at work. So I was dating him for a couple months, and I would tell him stuff like, there's this creepy uncle, like, serving me food and stuff. He would say stuff like, you know, you need to be careful because, like, he could be crazy, he could be dangerous. And I would be like, no, he's just like a sweet old man who's just kind of lonely. He sees me as a daughter. I call him uncle. And he's like, no, this just doesn't sound right. You need to tell him, like, to stop. And I would be like, you're just overreacting. Fast forward to my birthday. Uncle texts me to meet him outside after work in the parking lot. And I go, and it ends up being a very creepy encounter because he kind of, like, corners, like, he parks right next to my car. And he blocks my doorway because he has his, like, car door open, which is blocking my driver's side door. So, like, he tells me to get in as I'm walking towards my car. Mind you, I'm walking out with my boss, my two bosses. They see everything that happens next. Uncle tells me to get in his car. I'm like, no, I can't. And then he's like, just for a little bit. So I have no choice because he's, like, blocking my doorway. So I slowly, reluctantly get into the passenger seat, and he opens the door for me. He closes it. He goes around to the driver's seat, gets in, and he says, I just wanted to say, like, I love you so much. Like, I got you all these gifts. And he gets me, like, a vase of flowers, a fruit tart, a bag with, like, some perfume or something I didn't even ask for, and a card in it that has money. And I'm like, my uncle, you really didn't have to do this. And my manager is sitting in her car across the parking lot watching. I slowly, look at her. I'm like, help me. She just looks for a while, and then she drives off. And so when she leaves, this uncle, he's, telling me how much he loves me in my car. He reaches over to hug me. He tries to cop the feel. And I'm like, uncle, stop it. Stop. I just freak out. And I'm so, shocked and everything. And I just tell him immediately, thank you so much, but I have to go. I have to be somewhere. So he's like, all right, I'll put your gifts in your car. Unlock your car. I'll put it in the back seat. So I'm like, then he puts the stuff in the car, and then I immediately turn the car on, and I race out of there. I call my boyfriend at the time. I tell him what happened. I'm, freaking out, panicking. And my boyfriend at the time was like, don't go home. Come straight to my place in case he follows you. So I go, right? Next day at work, my boss calls me into her office. She tells me that you need to stop scenes. Uncle, you could have put your life in danger. You need to text him right now in front of me. Tell him that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to text me anymore. And if you come into the bank, I'm not allowed to help you. So then I get in trouble at work. I don't get written up because my boss was like, what you did was stupid, but I'm going to give you another chance. So you need to not see this uncle, not have any communication with him anymore. And I was like, okay. And I tell him, and he's kind of upset, but whatever. Then, 6 months later, something happens. Now, I'm running out of time, but I'm going to put it in part 2. This is part 2 of my Get Ready With Me scary story time. For my last video, I left off at where I told the creepy uncle at my job to not communicate with me anymore, and that I wasn't allowed to help him. So he got kind of upset, but anyway, I left it at that. 6 months later was, 2024. I got a new car earlier that year. That May, I was at work, and when I got off work, I went into my car. I noticed the tire light was on, and it said, extremely low pressure or something like that. Mind you, I had a brand new car, so I was like, what? I was confused, so I go out, I look at the tire. It's visibly deflated, but it's still, drivable. So immediately I go to Costco, which was thankfully 5 minutes away, and I have the technicians at Costco Tire check it out. So the technician calls me, and he's like, hey, we checked out your tire, and unfortunately, it looks like there was a sidewall puncture on your tire, so it's irreparable. So you need to get it replaced. So I was like, oh, okay. I thought, probably just ran over a nail or something, but I was like, how did this happen? And he's like, oh, it could have been for a couple of reasons. You could have hit a curb, or you could have drove on a bunch of potholes. I was like, no, I really don't drive that much. I live near my job, and this happened right after I got off my job. So he's just like, okay, it could have been something, rare occurrence. Later that month, the same thing happens again. So mind you, I already got one tire replaced, and then I had to get it replaced again. I'm getting annoyed. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to drive better, whatever. Fast forward to July, same thing happens. I get a sidewall puncture on a different tire. I get another puncture in August. So I get 2 in August, all at different times in the month. So at this point, I'm like, okay, it's not my driving. Something's going on. So I begin to think who or what could have caused it, because I noticed that this would always happen right after work. That morning I would drive to work. My tire would be fine, no lights on whatsoever. But when I would get off work and get in my car, that's when the tire light would be on, and it would say low pressure. I would always take it to Costco. They would say it's a sidewall puncture. So I was going to Costco at every other month because this was happening a lot. It happened in November. It happened in up until January of this year. January, the technician at Costco was like, unfortunately, because this has been happening so much, it's a sidewall puncture. It looks like your car is being vandalized. Like your tires are being vandalized, and unfortunately, your warranty doesn't cover that. Well, I was like, oh, shoot, like, what should I do? And they were like, maybe get a dash cam to see, like, who's doing this, because it seems like you have an enemy. I was like, yeah, I think I do. But at the time, I didn't know who it was. My boyfriend at the time and I broke up around November after that whole birthday incident. But it can't be my ex-boyfriend because, like, he lives 30 minutes or more, at least 30 minutes away from my job. He wouldn't do that because we didn't have, like, a horrible breakup. So up until January, they were like, yeah, this is the last time we can replace it. Like, basically, good luck. I get a dash cam, but it doesn't really help because it's not on when the car is parked. So that was an issue. The last incident happened in February, but it wasn't a tire issue. This time, it was my sensors went off. One weekend, I had to park on the street because my sister from out of town was coming to visit, and she parked in front of the house, so I would park outside on the street of my neighborhood. And one day I was going to the grocery store, and I turned my car on, and I noticed, like, all my lights were on, and I was getting an alert from my Toyota app. So I was, like, so confused. I was like, what? How did this happen? So I call my dealership immediately. I make an appointment for the next day for them to check it out. While I'm there at the dealership, the technician calls me into the area where my car is, and he's like, come here, I want to show you something. So then he shows me behind one of my front wheel tires. I'll insert a picture, but he tells me that someone attempted to cut my brake line. So at this point, I'm like super shocked. I'm like, what? And I'm scared, I'm like, who would do this? I start crying. I call my sister. I file a police report. Police comes to my job, a few days later to, question me about who I think the suspect is. My bosses tell me that they think that it's the creepy uncle who I cut off contact with. They were like, yeah, we think it's him because, one time he came into the branch and someone else was helping him. He said that you, meaning me, was a very bad person. And he seemed angry. No, he's like this frail, short old man. I didn't think he would be strong enough to puncture my tire, Especially in a shopping center parking lot where my bank was. Unfortunately, the property manager of that shopping center, did not have any cameras in the parking lot. So, I wasn't parked close enough to my bank where they could see my car. We just suspected that it was this uncle. So the police asked me, hey, do you want me to question him? I was like, sure, but don't mention me. So he goes there with his partner, questions the uncle. The deputy calls me back. He's like, I think we scared him because I kind of mentioned that, he needs to stop, harassing ladies at the bank, but I didn't say your name, so I was like, oh, okay, thank you. So he's like, I think that scared him. Long story short, I end up getting transferred at work to another branch, and then I never get any tire incidents again, knock on wood, so I feel safer there. But my managers on my old branch tell me that this uncle's wife comes into their branch and starts looking for me. She thinks that I must have been his long-lost daughter that he had from another person, long time ago. And it's just crazy. My manager has to, escort her out. It's just crazy. So, moral of the story is do not be too nice. You never know who people are. And your safety always comes first. So, Have strong boundaries. My family, who is extremely homophobic, ended up kicking me out and replacing me with my best friend. My family is absolutely awful when it comes to topics about the LGBTQ plus community. Literally any mention of it and they get extremely upset. Which sounds like they're suppressing something to me, but I had a friend that we can call Katie and my family absolutely adored her. Every Christmas they would buy her presents, she would spend family movie night with us, and they honestly treated her like she was the favorite daughter. But one day I made the decision to come out and I decided to talk to Katie about it. She was literally so supportive and so respectful that I gained the confidence to talk to my family about it. Bad idea. Hell striked and they immediately kicked me out of the house. So I found myself on a schedule of switching from couch to couch at different friends' houses. One particular night that was really hard for me, I decided to go visit them. I was missing them and also hopeful that they might accept me back in. And as I approached the house, my best friend was over there. She was playing games and doing family movie night with them, and so I decided to knock on the door. I burst into tears and went off on all of them. The absolute audacity. Later, my best friend texted me saying that she had a secret. This is why you should think twice about moving in with your friends. My friend Amy and I decided to get an apartment together. We've been friends for a while and she's the type of friend that I could never get sick of and always hang out with. The first issue we had was when she started bringing her boyfriend over a few nights a week, which was fine at first. However, he started coming over more frequently to the point where he was there 6 nights a week. Her boyfriend also always parked on my designated spot, leaving me nowhere to park. On top of that, Amy and I decided we would go shopping together for food every few weeks and split the grocery bill. But her boyfriend is over constantly eating all the food that we bought, and this guy can eat. Amy also complained that the AC bill is too high and we need to stop turning down the temperature so much and I quote, open the windows and rough it. I went to work one day and came back and the apartment felt almost as hot as it was outside, which was over 100 degrees. My dog lives with us, so I always try to keep the apartment cool. I immediately checked on him and went to turn on the AC. But to my shock, Amy had taken the control panel off of the wall and hid it so I couldn't adjust the temperature. I called her furious and explained to her that she could have killed my dog, to which she replied, I'm not going to leave the AC on all day when we're gone for a stupid dog. This is when things took a turn for the worse. Part 2, why you should think twice about moving in with your friends. After everything that happened, I knew I needed to get out and start looking for another arrangement. The next night I came home late after studying with some friends. I went straight to my room, turned on the lights, and almost had a heart attack when I saw a guy laying in my bed in just his boxers. I started screaming and freaking out, and that's when Amy rushed into the room. She said it was her boyfriend's friend that got too drunk when they went out and he needed to sleep it off. I couldn't believe she put this passed out, drunk, disgusting guy in my bed. At this point I was seeing red and I was about to fight her. But I left to my mom's for the night before I did anything I would regret. That same night, one of my friends sent me a screenshot. Amy had posted in a local Facebook group about how she's looking for a new roommate to replace her horrible current roommate. I couldn't believe that in her mind, I was the horrible one. The next day I took some friends and packed up all of my things. While I was packing, Amy had the audacity to come into the room and ask me if I was still going to pay for next month's rent. When I refused, she tried to guilt trip me into telling me if I want to keep our friendship then I need to pay. I told her that nothing could save our friendship at this point and I left. I haven't talked to her since. This is why skipping detention might be a good idea. When I was in high school, I slacked off a lot. My junior year, my math teacher was pretty upset by this. Once during a parent-teacher meeting, he told my mom that I wasn't doing as well as I could and called me lazy. My mom agreed and stated that she wouldn't blame him if he pushed and punished me to work harder. From this day on, he did exactly that, always questioning me before anyone else and always sat next to me during exercises. This is when my classmates started realizing that he was a little obsessed with me and started teasing me about it. Right before Christmas break, he threw us a surprise party with chocolates and mock champagne. He poured me an extra glass and congratulated me for doing better. I drank the first glass he gave me, but not the second because I'm diabetic and had already had too much chocolate. During the next class, I felt extremely sick and almost fainted. I spent the rest of the day in the nurse's office and chalked it up to eating too much candy. A few weeks later, I failed the math test. He became extremely angry and yelled at me in front of everyone. The look in his eyes chilled me and I cried. He gave me detention but scheduled it hours later than the usual time and said he would personally be there as well. When I showed up, it was getting dark already and I noticed I was the only student there. Something felt off and a feeling deep inside my gut was pushing me to skip. Right when I decided to skip, I look over and see him walking towards me. Part 2 of why skipping detention might be a good idea. As he walked towards me, I was getting nervous. I told him that I had an emergency and I had to go, but I would email at school and reschedule later. Right after this, I ran off. As I was running away, he yelled at me and told me that I had to obey him and come to detention or he'd call my parents. At this moment, I didn't care. The feeling in my gut kept growing, so I sprinted to the bus and went home. I was afraid that he'd call my parents when my parents greeted me normally when I got home, so I assumed he didn't. The next day, I was expecting to get an earful, but he wasn't there, and as weeks passed, he never came back. Then a shrink came to our class and asked if he'd like to talk about our math teacher, but no one knew why. Fast forward a few years later when I became a teacher and started chatting with my coworker. I mentioned his name, speaking to her about my weird, bizarre teacher and how I skipped detention. That's when one of the oldest workers there went pale hearing his name. It turns out a few days after I skipped detention, my math teacher was arrested for downloading child you-know-what from the dark web. He also had tons of snuff videos doing terrible things to children and teens. Now I always wonder what would have happened if I hadn't followed my gut instincts and stayed for detention that day with just me and him in that classroom.